Hi, and thanks for checking out my video. We're going to have a look today at LVM with Snapshots and the Yum plugin. Now, this is a great little solution. It means that not only do you get file system level snapshots, but it ties in with Yum. So when you're doing updates and things, it's going to take a snapshot automatically. So my intention is not to make an install video here. I'm not going to go into any details as we look at this really, other than how we lay out the disk. So once this screen loads, we can go into the installation destination section here under system, and we're going to select I will configure partitioning and done. Now this takes us into this screen here. We can use LVM or LVM thin provisioning. I'm going to use LVM here. It may be easier to use LVM thin provisioning. I have some old leftover. There we go. I'll delete that out. So using LVM, we're going to create our basic structure and just let CentOS do that. It's going to give us a home directory. I mean, in this case, I actually don't need a home directory, so I'm going to remove that. This leaves us with our boot partition, which is a standard device type. It's not part of the LVM, and that's because our boot partition for Grub needs to be outside of the LVM. It gives us CentOS-root, which is part of our volume group, and it's part of the volume group CentOS. And we've got our swap, which is also part of the volume group as well. Now, I'm going to add an extra /var/log. It's just something I like to do on a system, and it just means that I can keep my log files separate from the primary snapshots. Now, I'm going to adjust the size down of my log partition to 40 gig. It doesn't need to be any larger than that. Update settings. And we're going to do the same to this one here as well. I'm going to make it 40 gig. Now I've got a 120 gig disk. There we go. So at the moment, our volume group says we've got 0 bytes free. Now we're going to change this. Very important step to give us some free space within our volume group to be used for snapshots. So I'm going to modify this. You come into here and you change your size policy to as large as possible. Save. I mean, obviously you could set it fixed as well. Now it's going to change my free space. There we go, 35.12 gig free now. And that's the space that I can use for my snapshots. So it's very important that we do this and we have a sensible amount of free space. So now that's done, I've got my var/log partition, totally optional, up to you what you do with that. My root partition, my boot partition, my swap partition, and I've got the basics that I'd need. Obviously you can do this how you like. So I'm going to come back in here, accept my changes. Just briefly, I'm going to enable networking because I'll need that. And then begin installation. Set my password. Helps if you get that right. And there we go. Oh, it must be the first one that's incorrect. There we go. Right, so I'm going to skip the installation stage. You don't need to be watching all these packages fly by. And we'll get straight into the next section. Okay, so that's the tiresome installation out of the way. Let's reboot. Now, once this comes back up, we're going to log in and we'll have a look at the resulting file system layout. As I say, it's simplified for this example. Then what we're going to need to do is we're going to install the Yum plugin. So it's the file system snapshot plugin. And because we've created the LVM in the way we have, with free space ready to be used for snapshots. Oh, does help when you can type properly. There we go. Okay, so yeah, because we've laid it out the way we have, we will be able to get snapshots when we do a Yum update or install software or anything like that. And then I'll show you how to roll those snapshots out so we can roll back, delete the snapshots, and also create them manually as well, should you need to. So there we go. So we can see we've got our dev SDA one for root, sorry, for boot, and that's just a straight up partition. And then we've got within our LVM group, which we called CentOS, we've got root, CentOS-root, and CentOS-var_log to keep our log directory separate. As I said before, you can lay out the file system however you prefer. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to install the Yum plugin. So it's yum-plugin -fs-snapshot. So it will go away and do that for us now. There we go. So yes, we want to do that. No dependencies, which is nice, but we'll okay the GPG key. Brilliant. So that's now installed. So now we want to configure it. So what we're going to do is we're going to edit its config file, which is located under etc yum plugin confd. There we go. And fs-snapshot.conf. So we've got a couple of sections here. The main section, so do we want it generally enabled, yes or no? It's enabled already. Create snapshots in post equals 0. I actually don't know what that does, but let's add in an exclude here. So what I want to do is I want to exclude /var/log because I don't want to snapshot that when we do an update. What I want to do is keep my logs files and preserve them. I mean, you could exclude any directory you like. Some people might not want to exclude the log files, or they'll just, because you don't have to restore that snapshot, you can do it anyway. But for me, this is a system that works, so that's what I'm going to do. That's in place. I'm now also going to enable it under the LVM section, and I'm going to enable LV create size args. Now, this is using 15% of the origin size, I believe. I'm going to up that to 25. One of the reasons I left myself a bit more space, so it can be bigger. Now, it only tracks changes in theory, so that should be absolutely fine. We've got enough space in theory to do pretty much nearly the whole partition. So unless it was full, as you saw, we lost a few gigs that we gave over to swap and to the boot partition, but other than that, it's it's about 85% or so of the other two partitions size. Anyway, let's leave it 25% of origin for now, which should be more than enough in typical scenarios. 15% would have done well enough, to be fair. We'll exit out of that, and that's pretty much it. So it's now enabled. It's pretty cool. Let's do something interesting. Let's install MC Midnight Commander. I don't use this very often anymore, not since the late 90s, but it will install a load of dependencies. There we go, lots of that, and we can see it do its thing. So yes, I'm going to install that. There we go. So what we're going to see, there it goes, FS snapshot. It's going to snapshot our dev CentOS root file system, and it's done a snapshot root_yum and the date. Now, if we do an RPM -q MC, it's installed. If we type MC, we're into MC, Midnight Commander. For those that remember Norton Commander, it's kind of cool. So let's exit that. Okay, so that's great. So we've proved that we've got Midnight Commander installed, and what we want to do now is we'll have a look at the snapshot line a bit closer. There we go. So FS snapshot, snapshotting, and it was before it did the installation, but after it downloaded and did the transaction check. As I said, it was root_yum and then the long form date there and time. So that's excellent. So we know it's there. How can we verify that is probably the next thing. What we can do is we can type the following command. So we can do LVS -a -o name devices. There we go. So we can see there we've got root SDA2, root yum, and then the long form date time, and then our swap SDA2, and then our var log. So that's all of our partitions there, including our nice new snapshot. So, okay, how do I restore that snapshot? I can use the LV convert command. So I want to do an LV convert merge /dev CentOS in this case, but obviously, you know, use your LVM group name. Root underscore, there we go. So basically merge snapshot name. So I'll fire that. There we go. So delaying merge since origin is open. So basically our file system is mounted, being the root file system, it's going to be mounted. So it's going to delay the merging of that snapshot until the next time it's mounted. So probably the best way for us to deal with that with a file system such as our root file system is to reboot. So let's do that. Now, upon this rebooting, we're going to restore our file system back to that snapshot, which was obviously prior to us installing Midnight Commander. So we're going to find out that Midnight Commander is no longer installed, and we'll verify that. Here we go. Right, so I'm logging in. Got it right this time. Good, good. So let's see, Midnight Commander. Oh, command not found. RPM -Q MC. Nope, it's definitely not found. Okay, to install it again. And there we go. It's prompting us to install all the same packages again. I'm not going to do it this time. I'm going to say no, and we'll back out. But you get the idea. We successfully did a reasonable load of packages installed, and we restored it. I mean, one thing to note would be if you are going beyond the kernel update, so you've had a kernel update and you're rolling back to a prior version, we're not snapshotting boot. Boot's outside of the LVM. So I believe you would basically have to either edit your grub.conf to refer to the older kernel before you do the reboot, or you'd need to select an older kernel version from the grub menu when you boot up. It's just something to bear in mind. But other than that, you know, it's a pretty straightforward system, and it will protect you from a bad balked update. So just before we sign off, there's probably a couple of other commands you should be aware of. Let's actually have a look at how we go about doing a manual snapshot and how we go about cleaning up snapshots as well, because we might not want to keep all the ones we've got. So a manual snapshot can be done using the LV create command. Oh, if I can type properly today. There we go, LV create. Now, you have to provide the -L option again. I actually think that it's if you use the thin provision snapshots, you don't necessarily have to do this either here or potentially in the other file, because it already kind of figures it all out and it's all thin provisioned anyway. I don't know if that's just newer versions, but something to bear in mind. We can specify what we want this to be. I mean, typically it's going to be like, as we did before, 25% origin. You can do things like 100% free, so it will use the 100% of the free space available. There's various options here. We're going to do -S -N, and then we're going to name the snapshot. So we'll call this root_snappy. and then it's going to be a snapshot of dev CentOS, in our case, root. Okay, so let's have a quick look at that again. So we're going to LV create -L, 25% of origin, and that's a fair size for this particular example, -S -N, name of the snapshot, root_snappy, and then what we want to, the actual volume we want to snapshot, which in our case is dev CentOS root. So let's fire that. There we go, root snappy is created. We can, as before, we can verify our snapshots are there and what their names are by using the LVS command, LVS -A -O name devices. And there we go, root_snappy is there. Now, we could restore it in exactly the same way. I mean, if we were going to, just like we did earlier, we could use LV convert again. Back to not typing well, but LV convert, -- merge, and then we would just point it to dev CentOS, and under there you'll see root_snappy, so we could merge that one in. But equally, we might not be doing that. We might actually want to delete it, remove it, do a bit of a tidy up. So what we're going to do is we're going to use LV remove this time, /dev again, and of course just straight to the path of our snapshot. So root_snappy. Let's fire that. Do you really want to remove the active logical volume CentOS root snappy? Yes, we do. Successfully removed. So there we go. We've deleted our snapshot. So I hope that was a fair introduction to basic snapshotting with LVM with CentOS 7. I assume it's fairly similar on CentOS 8. I might actually do another video about that at some point. It's also, I mean, interesting to note that you can do most of this stuff now with more modern file systems like ZFS and ButterFS, BTRFS. You know, they can also run snapshots in a similar fashion. So you've got a few options there. You can use the sort of traditional LVM file system snapshots, or look at the package Snappy if you're going to be using BTRFS. I believe Suzy uses that quite extensively these days. Anyway, this is the end of my first video. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you did, I'll certainly try and do some more. Speak to you all soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.